Page 104 have many practical halachot. First one is the continuation of our discussion yesterday in regards to Sefer Torah. Writing Sefer Torah involved tremendous amount of skills and knowledge. One of them is the way that we spell in Hebrew certain words, such as mem sofit, small difference between dalet and reish, kaf and bet, and more. What's the connection to Shabbat? Soon you see that there is a strong correlation, but as a derivative we also learn Hilchot Sefer Torah, many halachot in regards to Sefer Torah. So in conclusion, we're going to study a halachot in regards to continuation of kotev, someone who writes on Shabbat, the level of writings, the amount that is considering a writing, then marking, and for our discussion is also a very important part of law of writing Sefer Torah. We are just several lines from the bottom of page 103, just to finish the subject of yesterday. It's a 6 lines from the bottom of the page 103. Parasha ptucha lo ya'asena stuma, ustuma lo ya'asena ptucha. Here we talk about a scribe that writes Sefer Torah, and we said that there are certain sections in Sefer Torah that it's open, it's unclosed, and the others is fully open. Meaning, those of you who have the pictures you see on the bottom of those masechtot, the pictures of a scroll of Sefer Torah, and you see that certain section open and certain one it's closed. That the open one is called ptucha and the closed one is called stuma. The reason for that, they said in the Torat Kohanim that it's a time for Moshe Rabbeinu lehitbonen ben parasha leparasha, that Moses have a chance to concentrate, to zoom in between each subject, and therefore there is a space between a paragraph that it's open, meaning the line, the end of the paragraph is empty, versus those spot that it's written and is no spot, is no space, it's the whole paragraph completed. So they said if the scribe write the scroll, he has to make sure that if it's ptucha, if it's not a filled up, he should, and that's the way we receive it as halacha Moshe Sinai. He should not make it stuma, and the same the other way around. In general, all the scroll it's called parshiyot, meaning in our simple language paragraphs. Certain paragraphs that was instructed to write it without space, he should not make it with a space, and also the other way around. The specification, you have it in the code chapter 32, and also you see it a lot in the Rambam Hilchot Sefer Torah chapter 8. כתבה כשירה, או שכתב את השירה כיוצא בה, if there are certain sections in the Torah that is called a song. I'm sure that if I ask you, you know the answer. Songs. Which songs we're about to read? In just next week we're going to read the Song of the Sea. If you look carefully at the Sefer Torah, they come divided in a certain way, which is an expression of either splitting the sea, but it's written as in our language, like a poem, like a song. You find the same thing in several places in the Torah, such as the portion of Ha'azinu, when Moses wrote his poem before he passed. For example, you see the Song of Devorah, the Song of David, so you the Song of Kohelet. So basically there are certain sections in the scroll that has to be written in a two separate column or in a certain way with the big letters, like in a scroll of Esther, of the 10 sons of Haman, etc. You have a certain scroll that's written in that way, which called Dilugim. The GEMARA in Megillah, which we studied in the past, page 16b, explained that it has to be written in that way. So they said Ktava Kashira. So if the scribe, instead of writing it in a clear subsequent order, he wrote it in a way that it's written like a poem, או שכתב השירה כיוצא בו, Or instead of writing those songs, such as let's say the Song of Moses, Ha'azinu, he wrote it like a regular writing of scroll, or shekatav shelo b'diyu, and that one of the halacha leMoshe Sinai tradition that we receive from Moses and Sinai is that we have to write in a full lines the entire Sefer Torah, and we have to use an ink, a black ink, that it's permanent, that you cannot erase it. So the Rambam tells us in Hilchot Tefillin chapter 1 that if it was written in different way, for example in different color, it makes it invalid. So the Meiri said that even he wrote one single letter in Sefer Torah, let's say with a red marker instead of a black ink, black special ink that the scribe used, it makes it invalid. So here you see a situation that he wrote all of that in an inappropriate way, not the way that we instructed by Moses and Sinai. Or shekatav et ha'azkarot bezahav. He wanted to make the name of God the glory, so what did he do? He take gold and he wrote the name of God in gold. It's just showing a language of exaggeration, that even one letter that's written with a gold, with all the expense involved, so you may say, oh, the Beit Yosef said in Orach Chaim 32, so he wants to honor the God, and he writes it with the gold to express the glory of God. So you may think, oh, so that's make the Sefer, the Torah kosher. It said no. So elu yiganezu. So in all the three incidences, such as if you wrote it like a poem, or you wrote it without the proper ink, or you wrote it with a gold, so right away the scroll is invalid and you cannot fix it. In a sense, you have to do geniza. Remember we said geniza, you need to wrap it properly and bury it. So usually if someone made a mistake, so you can fix, you can cut, you can do all kind of things. But here it's an issue. Some say that the only way to save it, if you want, you unsew all the several columns out of the Sefer Torah, and in this way you can have a new writing, but you cannot rewrite mistakes like that. So what we learn from that? We learn from this Braita that if you wrote even one single letter open instead of making it satum, which means if you wrote, for example, the letter mem, everyone knows how to write mem in Hebrew, right? And he wrote mem in script in Hebrew instead of mem, that it should be the end, you know, like a square, that make the Sefer Torah invalid. So that's basically different than what we said earlier. Hu de amar ki atana. That's exactly what Rabbi Yehuda said in the Mishnah. He said, Tani Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera Omer, Ne'emar bayom sheni v'niskehem. He said in the book of Bamidbar, chapter 29, in regards to the daily offering that was given in the festival of Sukkot. So they said in the second day, v'niskehem, instead of using the word v'niska. So, which means that the add here a mem sofit is superfluous, is something that there is no need. Or bayom shishi, in the sixth day, unesachea. So what you have here again, yud, that wasn't needed, right? Bayom shvi'i, in the seventh day he wrote kemishpatam, which means he should write kamishpat, and he add mem sofit. So harei, you see here a source, mem, yud, mem, that you have these three Hebrew letters as superfluous, as something that it wasn't need. So in all together you have mime. So what is a mime? Why did the Torah needs to have these particular words? So they said, Mikan remez lenisuch mime min haTorah. On the festival of Sukkot, so in addition to a daily offering, they used each and every day is they used to pour a water on the altar. That's what the GEMARA in Sukkah said in page 48. So Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera derived from that the source for the halacha, that since we have an additional letters of mem and yud and mem that was written in the additional part of the festival of Sukkot, so therefore here derive unesachea, that if he wrote the additional mem veniskehem, and he wrote that mem instead of mem sofit, he wrote it like regular mem. So as we said, since it's halacha leMoshe Sinai, the GEMARA said in Ta'anit, page 3, that is halacha leMoshe Sinai. So he said that, so in a sense, it's like writing something that it's acceptable, because mem, even it's open, or the opposite way, it's okay. So midami, so the GEMARA said, no, you cannot compare it. Now, the GEMARA said, patuach v'asao satum, if you make it, it should be an open, and you make it closed, like instead of writing mem regila, he wrote mem sofit. So the Gemara said, if that's the case, aluye kame alelei. So let me share with you an important machloket between Rambam and Rabbeinu Tam. The Rambam said, it's just an abbreviation, Rambam said in Hilchot Sefer Torah, chapter 8, that when it's come to ptucha, the portion that it's open and not closed, so they have to have at the beginning of each space a space of 9 letters. 9 letters has to be the space for parasha ptucha. Stuma, something that has to be completed. So the Rambam have the 3 conditions, and I'll just give you the abbreviation. He said that it has to be at the previous line a space of 9 letters. It has to be small spot, and if they don't have that spot of 9 letters, then it's it make it a stuma. So Rabbeinu Tam, when it's come to Parsha Ptucha, he hold the same as the Rambam. And when it's come to Parsha Stuma, he said that the space has to be only 2 letters. So the Gemara said, now we just turn the page to 104, the page of today. So he basically upgraded the level of the like elevates the status of that letter. The Amar Rav Chizda said, Mem v'samech shebaluchot banesem omdim. You know that there is a lot of writing what happened to the tablets, the black fire, the white fire, etc. So part of that is the idea that it was written from one side to another, which means that it was a way that the scroll, again, it's in our language, is a fire came from heaven and engrave on those white tablets the black fire that engraved the letters. And those letters were basically from one side to another, that it was an extreme godly supernatural power that put these letters. So here we say that those Hebrew letter of Mem and Samech that was written in the tablets, so it has to be Mem Stuma, like square Mem, like Mem Sofit, that it's round from all the corners. So when it's written on the tablets from one side to another, it has to be a miracle to sustain it. So in other words, the Gemara tried to derive the whole idea that on a tablet it wasn't any regular mem, open mem ptucha. It was only mem, a square one. So that's what Rashi said. So it means, what do we derive from that? That if the scribe who writes the Torah wrote a mem stuma instead of mem ptucha, does everyone know what is a satum and patuach? Let's make sure. Mem patuach, mem, because I'm going to repeat that a lot. Mem ptucha is a regular mem in Hebrew, in script. Mem stuma is look like a square, like the end mem. So now you know what I meant. So if he wrote stuma instead of ptucha, the scribe, he made that mem in a way more important, because that's the way it was written in the tablets. So therefore, now we understand that it's still kosher, the Sefer Torah. Ela satum ve'asao patuach garuai kamegar alei. But if it was supposed to be mem stuma, a square mem, and he wrote in a regular mem, so now he in a way denigrating the level of the letter. And you know, in Hebrew, especially in Sefer Torah, every letters carry a sacredness. The Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah v'itema Rabbi Chia bar Abba man tzapach tzofim amarum. This is the Hebrew letter mem nun tzadik pei and chaf sofit, meaning the tzofim, it's a word for the prophets. So they say that they are the people who reveal or you know, distribute to the world the new way of writing those letters, which means those letters inside a Hebrew words. Because if you tell me that the satum letters like mem sofit was already written on a tablet, so that's what Rav Chizda said. So it means that the mem that it's open, for example, for Mantzapach, this is something that the prophets reveal, and it was not before that. So so therefore, what we understand, so if the scribe wrote at the Sefer Torah mem open, mem ptucha instead of pasul, so it's a problem. So now let's go back to Hilchot Shabbat. What we said, that if you have the word Shimon or Shmuel and someone wrote Shin Mem, so if he wrote Shin Mem and the Mem is Patuach and Atzatum like regular Mem, so it means that it's not real writings, because it's less, and therefore he is maybe not liable for anything on Shabbat. So Vetisbera. So he said you can't understand that the way that Rabbi Yomi said, that the prophets make all the revelation of those letters. Ve'aktiv, they said in the book of Vayikra in Leviticus 27, Eile ha-mitzvot, these are the commandments. What we derive from that? She'ein ha-navi rashay lechadesh davar ma'ata, that the prophets is not allowed to introduce any new element related to the Torah and its mitzvot from here on, which means that it's something that it's like a blueprint, like a masterpiece, and no one allowed to make changes. So how come you tell me that the prophets make a new letters, or you know, like the letter mem in the regular one? Ela mi hava havai. The truth is that all the Mantzapach was there earlier. It wasn't clear where is the right location of those letters. If it's at the middle of the word, at the end of the word. And the prophet came and institute set positions. So now we understand that that originally we have two different set of Mantzapach, of those Hebrew letters, but it wasn't handed over clearly which one is the middle of the word and which one is at the end of the word. And the prophets came and taught the people the right location of every letters. We said many times that the prophets in the Jewish segma, it's not a people who have only clairvoyance ability, but they're mainly teachers of the people. So they taught the people where is the right location of each Hebrew letter. So now ve'akati, so it's still a question. The Torah said clearly, Ele ha-mitzvot, these are the commandments, she'ein ha-navi rashay lechadesh davar me'ata, which means that the prophet is not permitted to introduce any new elements from here on. So if that's the case, how come? So the Ela shchachum v'chazru v'yisadum, which means the people who forgot were the scribe that wrote the Sefer Torah, and therefore they are not sure, the scribe, where are those letters, if it's at the middle of the words, the end of the words. Unfortunately, as a part of the Jewish traveling and Jewish suffering and more, people forget things. So that's the reality. So the scribe forgot, but Hashem have a special compassion. So what did he do? He sent those prophets who instructed people, who instructed the scribe, where is exactly those Mantzapach located. So that's it means that the prophet, which called here the Tzofim, did not bring anything from their own mind, from their own prophecy, because then it's not a true prophet. But the two version of Mantzapach was given in Sinai, including their interpretation, where it should be written at the middle of the word and where it should be written at the end. But because it's forgotten for most of the people, and most of the scribes who are not so erudite or do not have the good memories, they mix up between them. So therefore, to make sure that they're writing it right, they have the help of the prophets who instructed people clearly where should they located those Hebrew letters. The Vilna Gaon have a lot of writing in that, and also the Maharal in the Tiferet Israel, chapter 64, elaborate on that tremendously. But again, we're running out of time. גוף אמר רב חיסדא, מם וסמך שבלוחות בנס הם עומדים. Rav Chisda said that the letters mem and the letter samech that was in a tablets were standing in miracle. So now we a little bit elaborate on that. ואמר רב חיסדא כתב שבלוחות נקרא מבפנים ונקרא מבחוץ. Again, this is a level of miracle. Since the Torah said in the book of Exodus chapter 32 that the tablets was written in both sides. So what does that mean when you read something from both sides of the tablets? How then? So Rav Chisda teaches us that it means that it was one of those miracles when you have those tablets and you have the black fire that come on a white fire. So you see those letters the opposite way in the other side. But here one of the miracle was that if you look at each side, it turn around and you see it exactly the way it should be. In other words, you don't see the opposite of the letters from the back side of the tablets. So he said, Kegon, Nevuv, there is a letter in the Torah, it's written Nun Bet Vav Bet. So he said, now, again, there's a two school of thought. The way that he said it, Rabbeinu Chanel said, it's like you see on a glass. When you see letters from the glass on the backward, it's buban, it's the opposite, bet vav, bet nun, which means you see it in the opposite order. Rahav, bahar, which means the bahar is written like rahav, saru, varas, which means that the opposite way. The Tosfot said, why Rav Chisda chose those words that was not in the tablets, why he chose those examples. And as we said, if you tell me that you see that in the opposite, you see them, but you see them the opposite order, so really the word nevuv, nun bet vav bet, it's written, you see it from bet vav, bet nun. But again, that's the school of thought of Rav Chisda. אמרו לרבנה לרבי יהושע בן לוי, the sages said to Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, אתו דרדקה העידנה לבית מדרש, ואמרו מילד אפילו בימי יהושע בן נון לא יתמר כבתאי. So you have today a little children or youngsters that came to the house of study, and they said words that even at the time of Joshua no one used it. Chatam Sofer explained why they use Joshua. Or according to Tosfot, who are these boys? Anyway, so they said Aleph Bet, for example, Aleph Bet, right? Aleph Elef Bina, which means you should learn the Torah in order to dig it in. Gimel Dalet, it's a acronym for what? Gmol Dalim. Gmol Dalim, it's like help, give to the poor. So in other words, those youngsters went there to explain the midrash, the way that you derive from those Hebrew letters. So my tama pshuta krai the gimel legabe dalet. Why the leg of the gimel it's going to the left side toward the dalet? if you look at the gimel, you see that the gimel, the leg, it's coming close to the next one. So they said, שכן דרכו של גומל חסדים לרוץ אחר דלים. So they said that usually the people who are loving kindness, they run after the indigent to help them. ומה הייתה מה פשוטה קראי לדלת לגבי גימל? Why the dalet, the simple dalet, go to the right side, which means toward the previous letter gimel and not to the left side? So they said, so explain, in other words, if you look at dalet, Ramban said, the side of the bottom, it's getting close to the right side, to the gimel, and not the other way. So they explain, delimtzei nafshei, which means that the poor person, he's loving, he will have the proper person to give him what he needs, and he doesn't need to run after someone who has the ability to help him. That's Rashi said. So how come the part of the dalet that it's open opposite of the gimel? So he said, so it's hinted that when the rich give the money to the poor, he should give him with a in a way hidden way, so the poor will not embarrass for receiving the charity. Which means that one of the halachot in tzedakah, in doing charity, is to make sure that the one who receive as much as you can will not be aware who is the person receive it, and vice versa. That's one of the 8 levels the Rambam said. So one of them, the best way the Rambam said is when neither one of them know. For example, you put it in the pushke, in the tzedakah box that goes to the poor people in a city, that people who are loyal and trustworthy in charge for that. So that's the Rambam said, Hilchot Matnot Aniyim, chapter 10. So that's the idea of the hidden part of each Hebrew letter. So then this youngster continued to tell us, Hey Vav, why it's a Hey and Vav? They said, Ze Shmo Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is one of the God's name, it's the Hey and the Vav. So now they explain why they need the name of God. Zayin Chet Tet Yud Kaf Lamed, that's the Hebrew letters. They hinted, Ve'im ata oseken, if you are study Torah and love kindness, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem, zan otcha, God gives you a livelihood, vechen otcha, makes people like you, umeitiv lecha, he do a lot of goodness to you, venoten lecha Yerusha, and inherited you, vekosher lecha keter laolam haba. Kaf is keter, it's like a crown, laolam haba, it's lamed, to the world to come. So these boys try to say, Marsha said, that the Hebrew letters are connected. Because of the merit of study Torah and loving kindness, a person get a blessing in this world, and also inherited the Torah and receive a crown of glory to the world to come. Next, mem ptucha mem stuma. You have a mem that it's a patuach, and mem that it's square satum. Ma'amar patuach or ma'amar satum, which means there are things in the Torah that we allow to reveal to public, and there are certain things, Rashi said, that it's concealed, as the GEMARA said in Chagiga 11, that for example the Ezekiel, or the story, the way there is in a chariot, or the way that the creation, and all kind of hidden esoteric secret that we call in our language a Kabbalistic secret matter, it's not allowed to reveal to public. Nun kfufa ve-nun pshuta. So why we have nun in 2 ways, regular pashut and kafuf. So he said ne'eman kafuf ve-ne'eman pashut, which means a person that he is a good-hearted person has to be humble in this world, and at the end, which is in the world to come, he will be straight. So it's the idea that there are two parts of a living soul. One looks like it's submissive in this world to God, and the other one he stands straight. Samech Ein. Why is it Samech Ein? So it's an acronym to Smoch Aniyim. Smoch meaning help the poor. So it means that Maharsha said, in addition to help financially to those people who need, you have another obligation to encourage them, to give them word of hope. As GEMARA said in Bava Batra, page 9, that anyone who gives a coin to a poor, he will be blessed in 6 blessings. But if someone is in addition give him a word of encouragement, he receives 11 blessings. So they said Lishnachich, another idea involved with these letters, Simanin aseh b'Torah ukneota. So in order for you to remember, so you see many times in the Talmud, Maharatz Chayut said, you see an abbreviation of what we're going to study. So they said it's always you make some mark so you can remember that, and you always can you always remember, you never forget it. So it's you know, I remember when we are in a service and you are in a very intense work, and sometimes they train you to be in in the captivity or things like that. So you have in one hand a lot of time, but you cannot do anything. So if you remember a lot of Torah, Mishnayot and Torah, this is a way that you can use it and avoiding any type of forgottenness. And the next one said pay kfufa or pay pshuta. You have 2 ways of pay. One is the regular, one is the end of the letters. He said he hinted pe patuach pe satum, which means, like the Yiddish mother used to say, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything. Which means that those are great people who teaching Torah, they should open the mouth. And others, better to keep the mouth shut. Tzadik fufa ve tzadik pshuta, the 2 ways of writing tzadik, it means tzadik kafuf ve tzadik pashut. Like the Hasidic books, they said, like my great-grandfather wrote a book, it's called Noam Elimelech. So in that book, he explained that there are different levels of righteousness. There is a righteousness that it's a basic righteousness, and there is a righteous that he is fully subjugated all of his inclinations to God's. He every second asks himself, is God here? What did God react to my actions? So it's a different level of righteousness. So they said, Hainu. So they asked, Ne'eman kafuf and Ne'eman pashut. So that's basically what we said earlier, or what we said about Ne'eman Pashut and Ne'eman Kafuf. So what's the identical to one interpretation of the bent and the straight nun. So the GEMARA said, Osif lachagatu kfifa kfifato. The verse add the bending of the righteous person to the bending of faithful person. Mikan shenitna Torah bimnod rosh. So we learn that the Torah was given in an atmosphere of gravity, which means a tremendous amount of humbleness. Rashi said, a sense of awe and reverence in the extreme humility. Kuf, the letter Kuf, Kadosh, which is the God, Kadosh Baruch Hu. Reish, Rasha. Reish, it's a implication to the evil, the wickedness. What's the reason that the Kuf facing away from the Reish? So he said, Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God said, basically if you look at the Kuf and the Reish, you see that the opposite. So you see that Ramban and the Ritva have an issue with that. But anyway, they said, that God said, I cannot look at the wicked one in our anthropomorphic way, which means the wicked person does not want to look toward God. That's the Ramban way to go the other way around. So why the Kuf turn away from the Reish? So they said, Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Im chozer bo, ani kosher lo kesher kmoti. So it means that the wicked person should never think that even I made a teshuvah and I changed my way, in the world to come, God is going to punish me for all the past mistakes I made, and I'll be very embarrassed for all the great people, righteous people that are there. So Hashem promising that if you really make teshuvah properly, so God told him that he will be in the highest level, as the GEMARA said in Brachot 34, that the place that you have a penitence, even the righteous people cannot attend there, because all of his wrongdoing turned to be judged as a good deeds, because he turned away and changed his way. So why the leg of the kuf suspended and not connected to the roof of the ladder? So it's like you have the head, and the Be'ur Halacha in 32 explain about the way that it's written in the Torah. So they said the Iyadarbe li ayel, which means that if the wicked person repents, he can enter to the opening if he wish to, which means that's the space between the kuf and the gag. You look at the kuf, you see that space. So even in a way, God doesn't want to look at the wicked person, but still, if he leave a spot, he can return to God. So now the Gemara asks, "Veleol be'ach," so he should enter that spot that is close to the rage. Mesail el reish lakish. The Amar reish lakish, ma'id ichtivim al lציבור להליץ ולענבים ייתן חן. What does that mean when it's written in the book of Mishlei, in Proverbs chapter 3, Im laletzim hu yalitz, if it concerned to scorners, he scorned them, and unto the humble he give grace. So they said, if someone wants to become impure, meaning to do a sin, they, meaning in heaven, they provide him for an opening, because that's a freedom of choice. On the contrary, if he comes in order to become purified, he wants to do teshuvah, not only is allowed to do so, they in heaven help him and assist him to do teshuvah. Then we go shin, sheker. Because why is sheker? Because if you look at the letter shin, it has only one leg, right? So it means that sheker, the word sheker, meaning lie, has no two legs, have only one leg. Shin and kuf and reish have only one leg, which means that the lie has no foundation. Taf, emet. The letter taf meaning the truth. Why it's the truth? Because number one, they have two legs. But also, the Maharsha said that that's the end of the word emet, meaning truth, which means full and full truth. So, ma'itama sheker mekarvan milei. So why the letters of sheker, of the lie, are close to each other? Emet merachaka milei. But the letter truth, the word are distance. Meaning, shikra shachiach, kushta lo shachiach. Lie is very common, but the truth, unfortunately, it's not so often common. Why the letter shin kuf reish standing in one leg, ve'emet melaban libunei, and the letter emet, they have letters aleph, you see the aleph, and mem and a taf, they have foundation. So they said kushtakai shikra lokai, as we said, the truth stand in the long run, lie will not stand in the long run. So because at this point the people may believe, but the Tikkunei Zohar said that the sheker en raglaim, which means the lie has no legs, which means at the end of the road he will be caught. So now we go to Aleph Bet, this voice, and they go in a different direction. So now they said Oti Ta'ev, Aleph and Taf, Oti Ta'ev, which means that God said, if he despise me, right, Et Avelo, which means I desire him. It's a question. So they said Bet Shin Bilo Chashak, He, if he did not desire to worshiping me, so God said, Shmi yachul alav. He wants my name to rest upon him. Gimel tet, you see, they go in the gufot timeh arachem alav. If he defiled his body, shall I have mercy on him? Daltotai na'al, if he locked my door, and said karnav lo agadea, shall I not cut off his horns? So it means that in a way God will put down someone who has a haughty heart or arrogant. Ad kan midat hareshaim. So all of that is attribute of the wicked, that the wicked at the long run will not survive. Aval midat tzadikim, that's like they said in the beginning of the book of Ruth. Vayhi bimei shvot hashoftim, it was a time that the judges judged, it was a time full of corruption, that the judges were all people who bribe and wasn't the truth. So they said it was a famine in the land, which means they are the cause of the whole, all the famine in the land. The simple reason it's because all the avaricious rich people control everything and they bribe the judges, and as a result, other people will suffer from tremendous poverty. So they said God will not allow that in the long run. That can be done in the short term, but in the end of the road, they'll all be punished and changed. So they said, Aval midat tzadikim, but however, if you go to the attribute of righteous, Aleph Taf Bet Shin, again we go the opposite way, Aleph and Taf, Bet and Shin, Im atabosh gerdak, if you shame from doing any wrong or from doing a sin, so it's Gimel Reish Dalet Kuf, Im ata osek gu bedok, so your soul will be under the throne of glory. Hey Tzadik Vav Pei Sofit Chatzitza Have Bincha La'af, that you create a partition between the anger of God and you. Zayin Ayin Chet Samech Tet Nun Ve'en Ata Mizdazeh Min HaSatan. It means that even that the Satan that come to harm, it will not harm you, which means you can see a lot of things that happen to others, but it will not harm you. Yud Mem Kaf Lamed Amar Sar Shel Ginom Lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu Rebno Sheyam Layam Kol. So a special minister that is called the minister of Gehenna, or some call it the hell, or whatever they said before, the Holy One, blessed is He, Master of the universe, send the righteous as well into the sea, to which all go to Gehenna. So he said. So now God responded. Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu Aleph Chet Samech Bet Tet Ayin Gimel Yud Pei Sofit Ani Chas Alehem. God said, I have compassion, I have mercy on them. Why? Because Mipnei Shabbat to begif, because they spurned adultery. Darkatz dakimem kenimem tzadikimem heilem nitkuf en lecha chelek bahem. Because they are pure, they are honest, they are righteous, you have no portion in them, because you have the interchange of the letter chet and hey. So then he said, Umerazan shet, that's the Hebrew letters, Amar ginom lefanav ribono sholam mari zuneni mezaro shel shet. So he said, even the minister of Gehenna, he said on the base on Vav and Reish, Master of the universe, sustain me with the seed of Shet, which refer to all humankind, which is the original Shet in the book of Bereshit, is the forefather of creation. Amar lo, so Hashem said to him, Aleph Lamed Bet Mem Sofit, which means you have no portion in that. That's why she said Gimel Nun Dalet Samech Le'echan Olicham. So where should I take them, lead them? So this God said Legan Hadas, which means the garden of Myrtle, garden of Eden. Hey Ayin Vav Pei Sofit Amar Ginom Lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu B'no Shlam Ayef Anochi. So Ginam said before God, I am tired and thirsty and needed people to take care of me. So God answered and said, Zamech זין צדיק סופית, ח' קוף, הללו זרעו של יצחק, so these are the descendants of Isaac, the one who bind himself on the Akedah, and I'm not going to let you harm them. ת' ריש י' ש' כ' ת' תר יש לי כיתות, כיתות של עובדי כוכבים שנותן לך. So if you need people, God said to Satan, the Gehenna angel, I have group upon group of other people that worship idols, etc., and I'll give it to you instead of doing that to them. We just turned the page to 104b, we're back to Hilchot Shabbat, Mishna, הכותב שתי אותיות בהלם אחד חייב. One who writes 2 letters on Shabbat, doing 1 lapse of awareness, is liable of a sin offering, which means he did it without the awareness. So, so you may say, oh, we said it earlier, we said it in 103a, that if someone wrote 2 letters, he is liable. But here, later we explained that if it was a 2 halamot in 2 different lapses of awareness, but the Sfat Emet have a lot to explain in this Mishnah. So when a person is really liable on Shabbat, כתב בדיו, בסם, בסיקרא, בקומוס ובקנקנטום ובכל דבר שהוא רושם. If someone wrote with a ink, dio, with a sam, with sikra, it's all different type of writing materials, or with copper, sulfate, or with any substance that makes a mark. ועל שני לבחי פנקס והם נהגים זה עם זה, or he wrote in the 2 walls of a house that form a corner, or 2 parts of writing tablets. So in each one of these chayav, as long as you know it did on Shabbat, he's liable. הכותב על בשרו חייב. If one writes on his flesh on Shabbat, he is liable. המסרט על בשרו, if someone go ahead and scratch it, letters on the flesh, on his flesh, רבי אליעזר מחייב חטאת וחכמים פותרים. Rabbi Eliezer required a sin offering, but the sages exempt. Why? So the Rambam explains in the Pirush Mishnah that that's not usual for people to do. And so, but later the Gemara elaborate on that. לאחר ידו, which means on the back of his hand, ברגלו, you know that there are some people have the art to do what? To write with oh, I skipped through line, I'm sorry. כתב במשכין, thank you. כתב במשכין, if you one wrote with liquid, במי פירות, or with fruit juice, באבק דרכים, with the road dust, באבק הסופרים, with the scribe dust that they use to dry the ink, ובכל דבר שאינו מתקיים, or any of the substance which the writing does not endure, פטור, he is exempt. לאחר ידו, is one to write by holding the pen on the back of his hand, or ברגלו, which is with his foot. There are some artists can paint even with the foot. Or בפיו ובמרפקו, with his mouth, with his elbow. כתב אות אחת סמוך לכתב, or if he wrote only 1 single letter, they want to show the extreme way that in any form of writing, וכתב על גבי כתב, or even he adjusts into other pre-existing writing. נתכוון לכתוב ח' וכתב שתי זיינים. He intend to write chet, you know, the way that it's written in the Sefer Torah is like 2 attached letters zayin. אחת בארץ ואחת בקורה, 1 on the ground and 1 on the rafter. כתב על שני כותלי הבית. He wrote on the 2 walls of the house that it's not attached to each other. או על שני דפי פנקס ונהגים זה בזה. Or he writes in the 2 parts on a tablet that is not attached together. So they said patu. So in each one of this, he is exempt. So again, this is an extreme example, and later the Gemara elaborate on that. And then the conclusion is katav ot achat notar ikon. If he wrote 1 letter as an abbreviation, which is the idea of part of the entire words, so Rashi said, Rabbi Yoshua ben Betera mechayev hachachamim potrim. Rabbi Yoshua ben Tera said that he is liable. because everyone understands it's a full letters. So it's like he wrote the entire letter, the Rambam said. The sages exempt, Rabbeinu Batnua said, because in reality it wasn't two letters, it's just the abbreviation. The final people understand, people understand. So now the GEMARA elaborate on that. And they said as follows. Dio deyota. Deyota meaning that made from sooth. Sam, sama. So again, which is a yellow thing, writing. Sikra, Amar Babachana Skarta Shma. So Babachana said that it's called Sikarta in Aramaic, which is a lead-based red paint. Komos, Koma. It's in Aramaic, the ink made of the gum Arabic from the sap of the tree. Kankantom, Amar Babachana, Amar Shmuel, Zocharta de Okashve. Which is that this is the black substance used by cobblers, which is a copper sulfur. So after we said all of that, bechol davar shu roshem, it's any substance that makes a mark, is liable. La'atuye mai, what we derive from that? So they said la'atuye hadetane. This is to include what? Rabbi Chanina, this is what Rabbi Chanina said, Ktavo b'mei tarya ve'afza kasher. If someone writes a get, bill of divorce, one wrote it in a juice of the fruit called taraya, which most probably produce some type of writings, all right? But it's still some type of juice, like a galnut juice. So they said it's still valid. Tani Rabbi Chia kadvo be'avar b'shachor b'shichor kasher. So he said that the one who wrote the get with a lid of sooth, with a shoe black, is valid. Why? Because it's a permanent mark. So write them in Shabbat is liable. Tani Rabbi Chia, Rabbi Chia, כתבו בעפר בשחור ובשיחור kasher. So all of that is kasher. המסרט על בשרו. If someone make a scratch on his flesh, Tanya, we learn in the Bright אמר להם רבי אליעזר חכם ולא בן סטדה הוציא כשפים מצרים בסריטה שעל בשרו. It's a story about Ben Stada, that he pulled out all this magic in Egypt. Now we read it in the Torah, right? He did it with a scratch on his flesh. So the people in the Egyptian, those magicians, they check everyone who left their country, Rashi said, that he should not reveal the secrets of their country, of the ancient Egypt, to other places. So because you cannot remove any material, sweet material, you know what this guy did? Ben Stada, he wrote all the formula of the magic on his flesh. That's the way he pulled it out of the country, right? So they said, אמרו לו, the sages said, שותה היה ואין רביעים רעה מן השוטים. They said he was full, and you cannot cite a proof from a fool. So in other words, that's not the way that people usually do things. So if someone did something, he wrote on his arm some secret. I don't know if you remember, but it was one time Israeli spy, someone who spied against Israel. And he went to Australia and he was caught and everything, that he revealed a secret of the nuclear. And then he wrote on his hands the formula, and was caught, and he ends up life in prison, etc. So you see that people do that. But here, as far as the Hilchot Shabbat, you cannot prove from a fool. If a fool person writes something on his body, etc., so that's not something that you can prove in Hilchot Shabbat. Now let's conclude. כתב עוד אחת צמוד לכתב. We learn in the Mishnah that someone wrote one letter to another one. So they said is exempt. So man תנא אמר רבי בר אבונה דלא כרבי אליעזר. דאי כרבי אליעזר אמר אחת על ההריג חייב. So they said that one wrote on the harig, so he is chayav. So by the way, there is a two version the whole idea of story of Bar Stada. There is a version in Gemara that it was Baal Papus Ban Yehudahu, etc. But most in the Gemara you don't find that part. Anyway, as far as the writing on a fabric is liable for weaving, so in his opinion only a single thread or leather is insignificant in itself, and is liable because doing even small measure to existing material is significant. Number one, we learned the Hilchot Sifrei Torah. So we said that the open paragraph may not be written as a closed one, nor may closed paragraph is written as an open one. So if such an error made, the scroll must be stored away and not be used. So the Rambam writes that such a Torah scroll is invalid and lack of sanctity of the Torah, and is rather like a printed Torah book used to teach children. However, the Rosh and the Rashba rule that it's permitted to repair such a scroll if possible, and this is the common practice. That's what's Shulchan Aruch Yoredea 275. If one wrote the following, the passage of the Torah in a format of poetic song, or as a poetic song in a regular format, the Torah scroll is invalid. So some authority, like the Tur said, they permit use as long as the song was written differently than the rest of the text, even its structure does not follow the regular traditional way. Now we talk also about a substance use for writing on Shabbat. So we said one is only liable to bring a sin offering for writing on Shabbat if one uses an ink or material that leaves a lasting mark. However, if one uses a substance that erases or disappears, such as fruit juice, one is not liable. Nevertheless, such writing is still prohibited. So if one writes, for example, on his flesh on Shabbat, is liable, even though the writing will eventually be erased. One is not liable for scratching letter into one's own flesh. Now, if he wrote it in the back of his hand, or in the mouth, in elbow, and other unusual matter, is not liable, because that's not. Now, about divorce, he said that if one wrote a bill of divorce, a get, using lead, sooth, or any type, it is valid after the fact, which means one may use a gelnut juice or any on a hide that was not tanned. So in other words, perfectly one should write a bill of divorce using only blacking. But if it already happened, as Shulchan Aruch Even HaEzer 125 said, so the bediavad, it's kosher.